than 24 hours, Georgians will be under a shelter-in-place order.
McDonald, though, said he did not know the man was handcuffed and was trying to use his foot to pin him to the ground so he could be handcuffed.
If your friends, neighbors, or local organizations are not complying, report them to us.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to the Free Georgia Podcast. My name is Jake Green, joined by my co-host, Cat Hartley. Cat, good to see you. Do you have a different background this time, or was I just not around the last episode?
I think I've used this background before. It's not
Okay.
my
All right.
usual one, but yeah.
All right. Well, how you doing today, Cat?
I'm doing good. The weather is beautiful.
I'm in the South right now. I'm in Texas. It's great right now. I'm loving it. So, yeah, it's a little bit better than the crazy winter storms y'all had, I guess. Do you prefer this weather or the stuff that happened over winter?
The pollen is actually insane, so I definitely do not like literally I'm driving around, people's cars are just full of pollen.
Yeah.
So I'm not really into that, but definitely the actual like temperature is
Yeah.
good and it's sunny and everything. But yeah, no, the pollen, I'm not looking forward to it this year.
I do not miss the pollen. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's everything's yellow and green all the time during the spring. I don't
Do
miss
they
that
not
at all.
have pollen in
Montana?
Montana?
Not nearly as much as Atlanta. I think Atlanta had an issue where a ton of the trees there are male trees, so they give off a ton of pollen. So I think it's a vast majority. I believe that's the reason, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong. I'm an idiot. So, we all welcome to the Free Georgia Podcast. Before we get started, head on over to lpgeorgia.com, learn more about what we're doing around the state to spread freedom and liberty. We have this show on a mostly weekly basis, so tune in each week. There's a ton of stuff happening on the website. Go check it out, lpgeorgia.com. If you're watching this outside of Georgia, go to lp.org and find your state affiliate and then your local affiliate and get involved and help spread liberty and defend individual rights. Today's guest is the founder of the Libertarian Mutual Aid Foundation, and he's heavily involved in the Libertarian Party at the national level, including working on the national convention that's coming in, is it May?
Yes, like Memorial Day weekend.
Memorial Day weekend in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So, without further ado, welcome to the stage, Mr. Pat Ford. All right, Pat Ford, welcome to the Free Georgia Podcast. How you doing today?
Great, and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about mutual aid.
Heck yeah, man. For just do a quick intro of what Libertarian Mutual Aid is, so that folks out there can go look you up and understand more about it.
Right. So, Libertarian Mutual Aid. Do you want me to give you a little bit of the origin story? It's actually pretty straightforward. So, about 3 or 4 years ago, in fact, one of the things I'm proudest of as a libertarian in Libertarian Mutual Aid is not just the work we do, but the fact that we actually did it without bylaws, without an operator's manual, without a board. We just got up and did it for about 2 years before we actually formalized it legally. Libertarian Mutual Aid is an organization dedicated to volunteerism and voluntarism at the same time. It started about 3.5 years ago. During the week, I'm a independent reporter. I do hard news, and I cover press conferences and all. I cover our federal delegation. I'm in the State House a lot. So I was actually called to a press conference at a homeless encampment, which was about to be, we call it rousted, busted up. And there were some homeless activists who had called it. And it was my first time at this particular encampment. And the homeless issue is near and dear to my heart. It's incredibly important that we as libertarians respond to this issue on a voluntary basis. And at the same time, it's actually a living, breathing testament to the failure of government everywhere. So I went to this, unbeknownst to me, this day would literally, the risk of being over dramatic, this day would literally change my life. So a large corporation, knowing that I worked with a couple of agencies that did homeless work started giving me bottled water. And when I say bottled water, not just the occasional 40-pack, but literally by the pallet. So I roll up to this encampment, and it's a lot bigger than I thought. I driven by it, but they've done as is often the case, done a pretty good job of hiding it from street traffic. There are probably about 30, 35 tents at this homeless encampment. And it's kind of a typical New England day. It's about 90 degrees. It's about 103% humidity. These folks are living in tents and under tarps with the sun literally baking down on them. It was brutal. And a young man came up to me, and he's wearing nothing but jeans. No socks, no shoes, no shirt, gaunt. I suspect that there were some addiction issues there. I'll just leave it at that. And he uttered the immortal words. And he said, "Hey, do you have any water in that truck?" And I opened up the back of the truck, and I still get a little emotional when I think about it. I had 2 pallets of bottled water in the back of the truck. And it's then that I found out in Rhode Island, where I live, failed Soviet workers' paradise, that despite the literal millions of dollars of money spent, no one brought these people, regular folks, any water. I mean, at all. Nothing. So on a daily basis, I've since learned that folks who might have $5 or $10 to their name end up going to a bodega or a supermarket and spending $2 on a bottle of water. And that's just your basic 16.8 ounce Poland Spring style bottle of water, which of course is ridiculous. So we passed out, and you'd have thought we were conquering heroes, and there's no profile in cards in this. We get the water, we hand out the water. It's an incredibly straightforward transaction. But we passed out essentially nearly 2 pallets of water that day. We gave every tent at least a minimum of a 40-pack. And, we're talking about the same water that you get at the supermarket. So we promised to come back, and I've since learned that not a lot of people come back. And again, we just felt a need. We got more water about a week and a half later. And I returned to the same encampment, and the same young man was there. And he asked me, I said, listen, he says, can I say something on the side? I said, sure. He goes, I hope you don't mind. We used a lot of that water to wash down with. I still get angry. It's been a few years now. I still get pissed off. Imagine in the year then 2023 through 2026 in the United States of America, just a mile or so from a pretty prosperous downtown, people don't have the wherewithal to bathe. Wow.
Yeah.
So we started something called the Water Project, and Libertarian Mutual Aid really started off with that foundation. We do 2 things. We do storm relief when there's a major storm, and we supply water by the pallet to encampments, food pantries, meal kitchens. We accept no government money. There are no salaries. It's all volunteer. And we're out about 2 or 3 days a week, year round. So up until a couple weeks ago here in scenic New England, we were passing out, we call them water grenades, because the water stays in the truck all night, and we get there in the morning and it's frozen. But we got to get these people water. And, a lot of people do wonderful jobs cooking. A lot of folks do wonderful jobs handing out. We largely stick to water. But at the same time, our truck, kind of a metaphor for my life, drives in circles around Rhode Island and Southeast Massachusetts. So we pick up and deliver, and last night was a perfect example. We had gotten food and we got a new supply of water. So we were out delivering that. We ran into some folks who had just, one individual is now formally incarcerated, was sleeping under the stars. And we picked up, he gave us a call because he was known to us. And we picked up at a church. I'll tell you a story about that in a second. On our route, we picked up extra blankets and then circled around to that encampment and passed out blankets and socks and snacks. We work with other mutual aid organizations. This is kind of one of those onion issues. The more you discuss, the more there is to discuss. But we work with a number of mutual aid organizations, both mostly from the left, and then there's us. And in the 3 years that we've been doing it, particularly during some heat waves, some rather notorious heat waves here in New England, there's times when we pass out 3, 4, 5 pallets of bottled water in a matter of 3 or 4 days. So we tend to go out when the weather is just about the worst. As long as it's drivable, were out there. And it's had all sorts of unanticipated consequences and reactions in all of our lives. Not the least of which, from a libertarian perspective, is increasing anger at the government because of the incredible resources wasted on salaries and bureaucracy and overhead, and just how little actually gets out to folks who need it. I want to end the industrial welfare state. The rest of my life will be spent working to end government. It's something I'm proud that I work every day. Am I allowed to say naughty words here, by the way?
You're allowed to say whatever you want.
All right. I try to do something once a day to fuck the government. It's part of my routine. Some people go to the gym every day. I don't, clearly. But it's much like going to the gym. I started out a couple years ago, randomly once a week doing something to fuck the government. Then I realized I had to make it part of my life schedule. So once a week, I would do something to fuck the government. And then kind of like the gym, you get the endorphins going, you really focus, it becomes part of your day. Eventually there's 2, then 3 days, then 4 days, then 5 days to fuck the government. My wife's about to walk into the house, so if she yells at me, you can laugh. So once it becomes part of your schedule, you start to see things that incredibly make it even worse than the conversations that take place in a libertarian Facebook chat room. It's actually a lot worse than you think. So doing this, we actually work not to just fight the government or end the government. We're working in concrete manners to replace government. And I think that's the biggest lesson of all, that we replace government with acts of kindness and charity on a volunteer basis that simply reflects your engagement in the community and your willingness to work with the community.
Heck yeah.
That's really what it all comes down to. And there's 1,000 things you can do out there that can accomplish that goal. We just happen to trip onto this. As you can tell, as I said, by the purest of accident. Who knew? And part of the work of Libertarian Mutual Aid is not just to do it locally, but to try and foster these same type of activities anywhere. So I talked about Storm Aid on a couple of times. On that 3-state storm wave we had a year or so ago, we were able to raise money. And actually, it's kind of neat. While tractor trailers loaded with used clothing were headed everywhere, we raised probably close to $8,000 to $10,000 from libertarians, and we distributed electronic gift cards to the chairs of the respective states and some local affiliates, who then, in the case of Tennessee, in the case of North Carolina, in the case of Florida, went out on a voluntary basis. And here's the important thing. When we send stuff to an affiliate, the good works are recognized under the guise of the affiliate. When we're not in Rhode Island, we're Libertarian Mutual Aid. We're somewhere in the background helping the Libertarian Party of Tennessee, the Libertarian Party of North Carolina, the Libertarian Party of fill in the blanks. Doesn't matter who it is. So we act as a background. We are a non-for-profit. We are a corporation. As a result, one of the other benefits is that we don't operate under political campaign finance laws. And when you donate money to us, whether if it's on Venmo or PayPal or whatever it is, credit cards, it'll come up, Libertarian Mutual Aid. So we're not asking people to use their personal accounts, nor do any of these funds accrue to campaigns and create that complexity. So that's the guise of which we work. But I've been going on now for a little bit. What are your thoughts? What are your questions?
Yeah, man. So first off, I think that's exactly what you're doing is exactly what libertarians need to do in order to demonstrate to folks that libertarianism can actually work. Because I don't think a ton of people believe that it can work. Like, I think a lot of people are more libertarian than they think, but when they start trying to picture a future without government, their imaginations can't take them there. Right. And the fact that you're implementing it and making it a reality and demonstrating it, I think is extremely admirable. And I know it's hard work. I'm certain that that's not an easy thing to do. So I guess my first question is, since you've been doing this for so long, have you seen other folks, have you seen other organizations pop up, or what are some of the tertiary effects of what you've been doing around your area? Like, are there other organizations that have sprung up over the last few years, or what have you? Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, from, I'll call it the right side of the political aisle, not so much. And we've had some success with some local chapters. We work with Vermont, we've worked with Tennessee, North Carolina. We did some stuff with Florida, and we'd like to do more, by the way. Because again, my goal is, I was down at the Libertarian Party of Mississippi, who, by the way, yesterday were actually on site at your United States Supreme Court. So a shout out to the Libertarian Party of Mississippi, great people. But we actually, they had me come in and speak to their convention and talk about mutual aid. But the interesting part that's also occurred is how closely we've started to work and be with our friends who might be more left of center. And I'll tell you one of my favorite stories of all time. Not this winter, but the last winter. Now, again, the weather shifted, as it does in New England. You know, you go through a few years where it's great, and during the summer it's not, and it's not terrible during the winter. Well, starting last winter, it's terrible now. And there was a spate of 2-3 weeks where it was well below freezing consistently. So imagine people in New England living outside, and that's what happened. And people were starting to die. So literally freezing to death. Happened again this year, by the way. A couple of people literally froze to death in their car. So the Providence, Rhode Island, Providence is our state capital. And the city was, and let me qualify this. This is important. I'm a libertarian. I don't believe government should be doing any of this. So when I criticize government for not doing it, it's because government takes the money to do it. Government creates barriers to entry and makes it more difficult for me to do it. And government wastes incredible amount of resources doing it. So you've got this situation where government is claiming that, you know, remember Obama, our federal family, right? Our federal family and our state and local family is purporting to do this, but they're not. You know, you go to, I spent a lot of time in our state capitol, which we call Halitosis Hall, by the way. And I see a ton of officious looking, highly compensated individuals with clipboards scurrying around, having meetings, design competitions, engagement, listening tours, all sorts of things, but not doing a goddamn thing to actually fix the problem. And I've become convinced that there are a number of people who really aren't interested in fixing the problem, because to do so would end the gravy train of government. So when I criticize the city of Providence for not doing anything, it's because they've taken all the money, so there's less money for us, and again, created all sorts of obstacles for people like me to just simply volunteer. So what happened was 2 city councilmen, with the sort of tacit approval of the city council chair, decided to do, and this is, it's been a year and I still laugh every time I think about it, did a hostile takeover of the city council chambers. And in the space of about an hour and a half, we turned it into a homeless shelter. People were,
that's amazing.
It was fantastic. We turned the city council chairs table, you know, big official table up front, into a buffet table. We had blankets. We had people sleeping on the, you know, church pews. Wasn't the most comfortable, but it was warm. And to my amazement, and I still remember that night so clearly, to my amazement, have you ever seen the movie Field of Dreams? And forgive me, I'm a boomer, so we do.
Yes.
All right. So at the very end, you see all the cars coming to Iowa, right? So I walked outside for a break, and there were hundreds of people, probably 100, 200 people showing up. Now, this was unannounced. This was not in the news yet. It was just word of mouth, showing up with blankets and food. Somebody put out the word, half jokingly, that there wasn't enough pizza, and we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 or 80 pizzas delivered, just by people who gave a damn. And literally called Domino's. In fact, Domino's called us to see if it was legit. They called the organizers. I was one of the organizations involved. I wasn't, but to see if these were all legit, because literally an entire city responded to that. The city was so embarrassed that the next day they gave us the use of one of these community buildings for nighttime. During the day, they had senior citizen events there. And it was actually, it's called the Da Vinci Center in Providence. And it had an industrial style kitchen in it, and it had a nice TV, and it was warm, and it was bathroom, clean bathrooms, everything you want, the basics, right? So they gave us that to use, and for a month and a half, we turned it into, within 24 hours, we had it into a safe homeless center where we didn't have beds, but we had lots of blankets, lots of places for people to sleep. We had Food Not Bombs, which, if you aren't aware of, is a left of center organization, but they're dedicated to the elimination of food waste and also channeling it to feed unhoused and poor folks. And Libertarian Mutual Aid and one local church supplied all the food for quick breakfast, but a full dinner. When I talk about a full dinner, I'm talking about, home cooked meals with gigantic salads and fruit. And one person literally said to me, it was the best 3 weeks he'd had in probably a couple of years. And that's the power of voluntary action, because it was safe. It was run by people who were well trained in running centers like this, and most of it was volunteer, out for a couple of people who were trained in both harm reduction and also conflict avoidance. So we replaced government, and there's a lesson to be learned in that, because government ultimately starts out with a lot of great intentions. And the problem is, and it's funny because I became a libertarian before I even knew it, because my father worked for 40 years for the United States Post Office. And before that, he served in World War II. And he would tell me stories about government incompetence and stupidity, but with also the caveat that so many of these ideas that government is now embroiled in started out with the best of intentions and then disintegrated into, black holes where people behave mainly for profit and just forgot, I guess they call it mission creep now in government circles. And the way we treat the homeless is around the country. When I go on libertarian road trips, inevitably I'm driving the van and I got water in the back. So I probably got on 4 or 5 road trips where I've stopped at regional and local homeless encampments, and see the same picture everywhere. Some well-meaning people and some large bureaucracies that are hopelessly out of control, who are there just to make the money, and I believe have no intention of ever really resolving these crises because of the personal wealth at stake. There's a local homeless agency called Crossroads in Rhode Island. They've got in their last federal reporting, they had a $24 million budget. The CEO, you ready for this? CEO made $400,000 2 years ago. $400,000 helping the poor. And that's what I see. And that manifested itself so well in a I won't call it an opportunity. I'll call it an opportunity to have a discussion. And
what's your salary doing this?
My wife's in the next room. 0.0.
We need to find a way for his efforts to get.
No.
I mean,
you have to live.
No.
You have to
exactly. No, exactly.
Okay. So you're gonna edit that part out, right?
No
way.
She
Wife's
can
looking out
speak,
for her
yeah,
husband. Yeah,
exactly.
I like it.
So the SNAP crisis. All right, jump in with the question if you want. I'm sort of on a roll here, and I don't want.
Well, I would love to know, because I think a lot of people in the party agree with what you're saying, especially about the government waste, and will probably resonate and would like to help more. Is there a way they can help you expand this organization? And we talked earlier that you told me that you would like this. It's a simple process. You want to keep it simple.
Right.
So.
Right. It can be done very simply. Libertarians, my opening joke about, not organizing for 2 years, just simply getting up every couple of weeks and just doing the work. was intentional. As libertarians, we create structures and then sometimes don't always follow through with the underlying mission. I preach to people at the Libertarian chapters, start out first by appealing to your membership and finding a local charity. A great example are local independent charitable organizations, could be church related, not church related, that do either food pantries or meals. And the simplest thing is just to volunteer. You don't have to start something from scratch. We didn't do anything formal for a couple of years. All right. Just simply show up and be the volunteer. In fact, be the volunteer. You know how every group has those couple of people who stick around at the end and do all the cleanup and all the hard work, right? Be that volunteer for an organization. It can be, and it doesn't matter what the organization politics. To me, the only important thing is that it be largely volunteer based. You know, a lot of these organizations will have an executive director when they grow to a point, but you know, it's all done very reasonably. I work with a number of not-for-profits where they've gotten funding, and you know, they've grown to the point where the executive director will make some sort of salary, but it's nothing like what you read about with these excesses, $100,000, $200,000 salaries, and then crying poor mouth when there's budget cuts. So the first point is find something local that you can volunteer for. And what'll happen is, and keep it simple, volunteer, organize it so your affiliate does it once a month, but show up for that once a month. And if it's a meal kitchen or a food pantry, bring some food with you. Everybody chip in and buy, you know, ask the folks in charge, hey, what can we bring next time? Right? And it's that simple. Do that for a few months, 6 months. Number one, you're going to find out who's actually going to stick with it. A lot of people start out with the best intentions, a lot of reasons why they may not be able to stick with it. But if you come out with a core of 3 or 4 or 5 people, you know, I'm talking libertarian numbers, then start to consider what you can do and support. The beauty of the water project is we're the only ones in the state doing it, incredibly. You know, activists will show up, you know, or caseworkers will show up with a case of water, but water presents its own unique challenges. It's heavy. You know, it's hard to carry. It's hard to bring into these encampments in particular because the encampments have moved further and further away from roads to be less visible. There's a whole bunch of things, which is why people need it. So find something like that that's unique to your thing. We get the water donated to us. Our expense is the truck. We get the water donated by, we have 3 different companies now that donate surplus bottled water. So keep it simple. Find out who your long-term partners are going to be, both outside of the organization and then within the party. And I can give advice on that. And I've given speeches on it. I'm happy to help. You know, and I will tell you the benefits from it are astonishing, life-changing. Number one, you learn to develop empathy. You gain an understanding of just how complicated these situations are. They're all not, no one case is the same, and they're not, you can't pigeonhole these people. There's so many different circumstances, medical debt, addiction, job loss, evictions, the housing crisis. There's 1,000 reasons why people are in this position right now. And if we're aspiring to be leaders in a community, then we need to understand those stories because it's, you know, ultimately we want to end all this madness, but at the same time, we want to not leave people in the lurch. We just simply, there's no magic button to push where this all ends. I know in libertarian chat rooms, there's always, well, just end it. You know, if you want to have you saw in the SNAP crisis what happened when literally the switch got shut off. Within weeks, you had society starting to break down a little bit. Within weeks, never mind months. So every affiliate can do something like this. And, you know, I will tell you from a political standpoint, I am invited into circles. I will tell you that most libertarians aren't. There's a lot of good libertarians out there that work coalitions and things like that on different issues. I don't want to mean it that way. But when it comes to the homeless issue, the last 2 legislative sessions, our speaker, who I'm well known to for political reasons, actually invited me to testify on the issue from my perspective. My last testimony involved making sure we have something called the Homeless Bill of Rights here in Rhode Island, and I'm looking to expand it so that the homeless have Fourth Amendment rights, even though they're living in a tent. Because right now, methods of search and seizure that would never be tolerated in an apartment or a home are commonplace in that world. So all of a sudden, I get an opportunity as a libertarian to talk about Fourth Amendment rights in front of the General Assembly, and people are listening because our group has credibility because we're doing the work. Pretty cool.
That's pretty dang cool. Kat, you got another question for him?
Yes. What has been one of the most fulfilling things doing this work?
I will tell you, there's a church in Providence, Rhode Island called the Matheson Street Church. It's a Methodist church. And the guy who runs it, if saints walk among us, it's at these three churches under the Rhode Island Council of Churches have bonded together on something called Operation Nod this year. Operation Nod stands for No One Dies. And three churches were converted into homeless shelters. They did get some funding from the government, minimal. And as I like to point out, and as I pointed out to the head of that organization, Crossroads, this group got less than half of her year's salary funding to run three homeless shelters. The rest of it was done through voluntary support. Organization Guards, Food Up Bombs, a bunch of folks. So, I'm in regular contact with these folks, and they're very gracious. And the first thing when they say, "Oh, Pat, you're crazy," I said, here's the thing: when you help people, I said, Kevin, you know who the real winner of this is? Oh, the people you help at. No, I win. The people who I work alongside of, we win. What's cooler at any given day than being in a position to help people with less and people with nothing? I mean, what's better than that? So I will tell you, just from a purely personal perspective, being able to, at some level, and there's a small group of us. It's I'm the spokesman, right? I'm the guy who started it. Being able to affect that kind of change through a libertarian prism is great. And I know that there's little pockets of people starting to do it. We're starting to recognize the power of it. And I wear a T-shirt, and I'm wearing it right now, that on the back of it says, "We are not from the government. We are here to actually help." And when I wear that in the State House, by the way, when I wear that on the street, because it's kind of my uniform, I got about 7 or 8 of them. I've had people I can tell turn around and follow me up the street, because then I hear people laughing, and then they say something nice because they can't believe it. There was a time when a few months ago when I walked in this, I was in the State House, and there was a testimony going on about, and it was being run by an organization that was organized to help non-for-profit agencies. Now wait a minute, we've lost our minds with this non-for-profit stuff, right? There are so many. I don't know if that's me. There's so many. There's an entire industry that's been created around non-for-profit, and so many of these organizations are not charities. They're real estate management companies, they're real estate investors who hide behind nonprofits. She points at my shirt, she goes, "That's funny." I said, well, I smiled, and I said, "Well, what's funny about it?" "Libertarians doing mutual aid. That's funny." I said, "It's a real organization." And she was horrified. I said, "We've been out there for 3 years. Where are you?" So, long answer to a short question, but that's the stuff that works.
Well, Pat, it's amazing, man. The website is libertarianmutualaid.org. And y'all can go check it out. You can donate straight from the website. It's right there. It's very simple. Pat, man, I appreciate what you're doing. I like people who walk the walk as well as talk the talk, and you're doing both. So keep that up. I know you're in charge of the national convention this year. So just real quick, what do people have to look forward to for national convention?
Starting to get pretty intense. First of all, LNC2026.com is the website. The basic schedule went up today. People have been calling for that. People are getting done with their conventions, and now they're starting to make plans. So a couple of things. First of all, there are 4 hotels on the website that you can choose. We're asking people to reserve their rooms through the website. First of all, it helps the party out. Number 2, the rates are from $139 to $142. There are a handful of rooms left at the Hilton that have popped up as of this morning, and that's the hotel that's closest to the event. The event's being held at a convention center. There's a schematic up there. You can buy packages. We're starting to flesh out now exactly what the breakout sessions are going to be. But if you go to the speakers section, Hammond Bundy is going to be speaking. We're voting on, and we're looking at Afro Man speaking. Justin Amash, Ford Fisher. Ford Fisher is, he is, if you're not familiar with his work, Google it. I attempt to do locally what he does nationally. So we're going to be talking about new media. Zano, the crypto company, we're going to have a crypto corner where they're going to be having ongoing conversations and speeches during the day. It's a 4-day convention. What's important about that is it's been a 3-day for a very long time. People, 4 days, what do we? Our mission, threefold. Number 1, make sure that there are no events going on in competition with business on the convention floor. Most importantly, it's been a couple of years because of timing and events and politics that we've had the opportunity to properly pay attention to platform as well as bylaws. The extra day is there to make sure that we get to those issues. It's clear from a lot of perspectives, and lots of people have opinions on this, but we need a bylaws tune-up, and we need to address fundamental challenges in our platforms, and we need to do so in a way that supports the party and hopefully brings people together at some level. So we purposely did it 4 days. By the way, as a tease, 2028, the convention is going to be in February, so that we can give our presidential ticket more time to run a legitimate presidential campaign. But listen, you're going to have 1,100 libertarians in one building for 4 days. By the way, the Libertarian Party of Canada chair is coming, and he'll be talking about everything from Alberta independence to the trucker situation to fundamental civil liberties. We are working on the paperwork to make sure the visa gets through to have the chair of the Libertarian Party of Russia there. Imagine a room where you have the chair of the American Party, the chair of the Canadian Party, the chair of the Russian Party discussing war and civil liberty. Scott Horton's going to be. Just get a lot of sleep. That's all I say. And get your hotel rooms. It's important. We don't want to. $142 to $139 a night are really nice hotels that are all within. 3 of them are within a sky bridge. 4, they're all within a quick walk. We don't want people paying full freight. We don't want people, not being able to go because all of a sudden they're being faced with $200 hotel rooms. So please get your rooms. On the Hilton, I know that you don't have to put down a deposit to get your room. So get your rooms.
Awesome. Pat, incredible, man. I'm looking forward to it. We're gonna have a booth there, my company, and we'll be live streaming some stuff, and I'm excited. It's gonna be a fun year. And for all those out there who want to attend or just want to come for the entertainment and checking out all the booths and stuff, please do. It's going to be a fun time. Cat will even be there, so it'll be really fun. Pat, again, thank you for everything you're doing, man. And any final shout outs before we wrap this up?
Listen, I'm asking people to come to this convention with kind of the same spirit I approach my mutual aid. I want people to walk out of that convention on fire. I want people to be refocused on what's important, which is, did I mention what I like to do to the government? Listen, I want people to walk out of there on fire, ready to do liberty. I want people to walk out of there. We've got some great training, by the way. Look at the site, go through the site. More is coming up every day. But I want people to walk out of there literally ready to face outward and do the work. Less libertarian Game of Thrones,
less arguing. I find that if people are engaged elsewhere, a lot of that stuff goes away.
Yep. You couldn't be more right. All right, y'all. Go check it out. LibertarianMutualAid.org and LNC2026.com. And hopefully we'll see you there. That's it for the Free Georgia podcast, y'all. We'll see you next time.